Well, was there a deep state plan to assassinate President Trump years ago? A plan in the making for many, many years. A plan that would only be carried out if plans A and B failed? Well, according to our next guest, yes. And we just saw in action this weekend in Butler, Pennsylvania. Alex Newman, in fact, wrote an article about it back in 2018 where he detailed this plan, talked about it with his sources, Roger Stone and others. Alex joins us now from Liberty Sentinel. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. I wanted to get you on and be able to talk about this. So thanks for coming on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me, Clayton.
So my pleasure. You wrote this piece back in 2018. Roger Stone, of course, thinks something very, very fishy happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. But I just want to put this up here on the screen. This is your piece you wrote back in 2018. Deep State Plan C is to kill Trump, advisor Roger Stone warns. What did Roger tell you?
It was fascinating. So this was in the first year of the Trump presidency, and it was very obvious that the deep state, no matter how you define it, was coming after Donald Trump. You had the intelligence community going after Donald Trump. We were right in the middle of the Russia hoax, the Mueller investigation from the FBI. They hadn't yet started openly talking too much about using the 25th Amendment, although Roger Stone predicted that was going to be the next step. So I actually went to Roger's studio. I went to his house. We talked about this for a long time, and he told me everything was on record. So I went back and I wrote this article. He said if they can't get Donald Trump out using the Mueller investigation, if they cannot get him out using the 25th Amendment, they're going to go to Plan C. And he had already obviously looked at the assassination of John F. Kennedy. He, Roger Stone, regardless of what people might say about him or think about him, he understands, I believe, American politics and the way things work in the United States political realm better than probably anybody else. He was there with Nixon. He was there with Reagan. He was there with Senator Bob Dole. I mean, he's been around. He's been with Donald Trump since the 1980s. And what he said is they will try to assassinate him. And so I went back and I read that article after the assassination attempt. I'm like, man, everything Roger said was going to happen actually happened. And then we see this assassination attempt. And I'll tell you what, I don't claim to know what happened, Clayton, but I don't believe for 1 second that some doofus 20-year-old on his own decided to buy an AR-15 and take a shot at the next president of the United States. I don't believe that for a second. I think based on what I've seen over many, many years of research, that guy was probably the fall guy. The fact that he's dead is very, very convenient. Were the FBI talking to him? Did they convince him to do something dumb? I don't know. Hopefully we'll figure out more in the months to come, but I don't believe the story we're being told at all.
I don't either. I think you're absolutely right about that. And now we know that there's zero information about this kid. The FBI scraped his phone. They found no signs, nothing at all. Nothing, no one in the community, zero information about this guy. Nothing with him. He played video games all the time. There was nothing in forums, nothing him connecting with anyone. We learned this morning, zero information from this 20-year-old kid. And Roger Stone has told me, and he's told others on X as well, publicly, so not just privately, that something absolutely fishy is going on here. We posted a poll on our channel asking how many of you believe that this shooter acted alone. Overwhelming. Tens of thousands of votes say no way. No way that this individual acted alone. So I absolutely agree with you. Let's talk about the plan A and B. Because I think that's fascinating. So the deep state was trying to go through sort of legal means that they could try to derail Donald Trump. When that didn't work, Plan C. Can you kind of detail some of Plan A and B? And I think we've seen some of that in action clearly in courtrooms over the past couple of months.
Yeah, we did. And the Plan A, I think it was multifaceted. The Russia collusion hoax was probably the most obvious example of what that looked like. And it wasn't just Donald Trump either, right? The way that they took out General Flynn so rapidly. I knew right when Donald Trump named General Flynn, I had followed part of his career. I had seen what he had said about what the Obama administration was doing in Syria and Libya. So I knew this guy was the real deal. I didn't even know him personally at that time, but I said, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows where the bodies are buried. There are powerful people in Washington who aren't going to like it. And so we saw this massive setup where they took out General Flynn. And in the years after that, we saw them go after Roger Stone. We saw them go after Steve Bannon. We saw them go after Peter Navarro, like all the legit people who were working around Trump. They went after Paul Manafort, who helped get him elected as the chairman of his campaign. So I've talked to all these people, and the thing in common is they are not part of this cabal, this deep state that Donald Trump refers to regularly. And so they had a big target, a big bullseye painted on their back. Now, a lot of it, of course, was lawfare. If you could lock these guys up and throw away the key, that's fine. But if you can't, you got to move to the next step. And so we saw this with the intelligence community. We saw them spying on Trump. We had Chuck Schumer, at the time, the Senate Majority Leader, openly saying on MSNBC, it's really dumb to go after the intelligence community. They've got 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. And of course, that's exactly what we saw. So the Mueller hoax was, I think, the first really obvious example of this. But just like Roger Stone said, when that fell apart, they couldn't pursue that. They went on then to the plan B. They started saying Trump was crazy. They actually started talking to some of his cabinet secretaries, and I talked to some of his cabinet secretaries. They were trying to round up support to remove him using the 25th Amendment, exactly like Roger Stone predicted. Because, and there's a lot of debate about, were Trump's policies great? Let's not even talk about the policy. The fact is, he was a threat to the establishment, to the uni-party agenda, the perpetual war, the globalism. I mean, he went in there like a human wrecking ball, tearing apart the institutions of global governance that these people had built up over generations. They were shocked. They were alarmed. They couldn't control him. So what they wanted to do was, if they couldn't take him out, at least take out his key people, replace them with people like General McMaster, right? That's another guy that Roger Stone mentioned in those interviews that we did back in late 2017, published in 2018. They replaced Flynn with General McMaster, a deep state swamp creature, member of the Council on Foreign Relations. This was a huge operation. And frankly, I think there's going to have to be, if we're ever going to get this country back on track, there's going to have to be accountability for all this. All this has to be unwound. We have to know who knew what, when, and I think we're going to need prosecutions.
Does it surprise you to learn that the head of the Secret Service, the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, confirmed that she purposefully, ordered stand-down orders for Secret Service to be on that roof for safety concerns because of the sloping roof? So we now have confirmation that she ordered, or at least someone in the Secret Service ordered stand down so that Secret Service was not on that rooftop. Roger Stone says he believes that there was not one shooter involved in this. It sounds like this was a conspiracy, a deep state conspiracy.
It absolutely does. And we've all seen the videos at this point now where people are saying, look, we were warning the police, we were warning the Secret Service that there was a guy with a rifle climbing up onto the roof. This is not the kind I know there's a lot of incompetence in government. Anybody who's ever worked with government knows there's a lot of incompetence, but this is like a whole nother level of stupid. And at some point you have to say this cannot be stupidity. I mean, it's worth considering as a hypothesis, but these people would all have to be the most incompetent bunch of nincompoops to ever walk on the planet. Do we really believe that that's who the Secret Service has protecting some of the most important people in the country? I think when you just look at the facts that we have already, it doesn't pass the smell test. This looks like somebody somewhere wanted that guy up on that roof with that rifle, and we've got to get to the bottom of this, because whoever tried to take out Donald Trump just recently will try it again if they're not held accountable, if they're not stopped, if they think they can get away with it.
Well, that's what I was just about to ask you here. Roger Stone, does he believe they didn't accomplish their goal here, that this is going to happen again? Do we believe that we could see something like this rise up again and not miss this time?
Absolutely. I think Donald Trump got it exactly right when he finally spoke after this, after he got off the stage. He said, God alone preserved my life. And I think that's what happened. I think the goal was to actually blow his brains out. And through miraculous intervention, God preserved his life. But we would be very foolish to think that the same evildoers who just tried to take him out would not do it again. We know the hatred that these people have. I wrote a whole book about this, Clayton, Deep State, the invisible government behind the scenes. And a big part of it revolves around why they hate Donald Trump so much. He's not part of their little clubs. He's not a member of their little groups. He doesn't go to the Council on Foreign Relations for ideas on policy. He doesn't show up at the Bohemian Grove and do the weird rituals with the weirdos that get together out in the Redwood Forest in Northern California. He hasn't been to the tomb at Yale. So he's not friends with these guys, and they've got their plans and they don't like him. And they've been working on these plans for a very long time. We would be very naive to think that they won't do anything to stop him.
I'll get you out of here on this, Alex, which is the President Biden piece of this. Obviously, all of the attention of the past few days has been on President Trump. A week before that, though, it was all on President Biden and how quickly he would be removed from this. Would Kamala Harris be stepping in ahead of the convention? And now Axios reporting, I think this got buried in the past 48 hours as well, that the Democratic National Committee is quietly steaming ahead with plans to technically nominate President Biden weeks before the party's convention. It's sort of a closed, with a DNC's current plans to basically train state party chairs next week on how to conduct sort of an electronic voting so that they don't even have to have the convention. Everything will be signed, sealed, delivered before the convention. Marianne Williamson tweeting saying, call for an open convention. Allow us to vote on a candidate. But it appears that the Democratic Party is going to keep this closed in order to keep President Biden in power and become the nominee heading into the fall. What do you make of this?
It'll be very interesting to see if they can get away with that. I mean, at this point, anybody, including the most diehard Democrats, can see that Biden is not well. He's obviously a puppet. He's obviously being used and manipulated by powers behind the scenes. So where this goes is going to be very interesting. And I think that was a whole nother reason why they had to take out Donald Trump. I don't believe that we were told the truth about what happened in 2020, but in this case, it would have been impossible to try to manipulate that. I mean, it's so obvious that Biden would lose this election in a massive way. There's nothing you could do to get around that. It's just too clear. And so taking Donald Trump out would have been a mighty easy way of making sure that they could keep the agenda moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at this Democratic convention. I don't think Biden is actually going to be president again. I don't even think he's going to end up being the nominee because it's just too obvious at this point to everyone. The knives are out. The New York Times is saying he needs to step down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But folks, get involved. I mean, the future of our country is on the line here. Everything that's happening now is going to have an impact on your children and your grandchildren. Now is not the time to sit on the sidelines.
For sure. And these kitchen table issues, of course, driving the biggest moment right now for Americans who can't afford to put food on their table because prices have surged under President Biden to unbelievable levels right now. Sticker shock across the country. Alex, we really appreciate you joining us and hope you won't be a stranger. We'd love to have you back here on Redacted. Thank you for the great work over there at Liberty Sentinel. And where can people check out your book, by the way, the Deep State book?
Amazon sells it for way too much money. I don't even know how that works. The easiest place to get it is on my website, libertysentinel.org/shop. Thank you very much, Clayton. I appreciate the opportunity to come on.